In Southern Africa, economists say South Africans are in even more terrible trouble, with the repo increasing to its highest since 2009 and the rand reaching its lowest point ever. The repo rate is now 8.25% after the latest increase of 50 basis points that sent the rand crashing to 19.73 rand, far worse than it was last week when the U.S. warned South Africa about trading arms with Russia. The repo rate increased by 4.75 basis points since November 2021, when it stood at 3.5%. This means consumers who bought houses or cars at a low rate are now battling to make ends meet. Meanwhile, the rand plunged to unprecedented worst levels immediately after the 50 basis points increase was announced, moving from 19.32 rand against the US dollar to 19.65 rand on Thursday, and then 19.73 rand by 6 p.m. So this afternoon, joining us on the news is Professor Bonke Dumisa, an independent analyst, to discuss this. Thank you, Professor, for joining us.
Yes, good evening to you and to all the News Central listeners and viewers from all over the continent.
Thank you very much. Now, for the benefits of those who might not understand or know what the repo rate means, perhaps a little explanation is a way to start.
Okay. Even South Africans ask this question all the time. A repo rate is a short form for a repurchase rate. The central bank does not do business with ordinary citizens. They do banking with the other banks. So the other banks borrow money from the central bank, and then the central bank charges them at what is called the repurchase rate, and that is the repo rate. And then when the other banks, the commercial banks, then lend their money to ordinary people or businesses, they use what is called the prime overdraft rate or the prime lending rate. So you take the repo rate and you add 3.5%, and what comes thereafter is what normally people are charged when they raise loans with the commercial banks. So you will take the current 8.25, the new 8.25% repo rate, you add 3.5%, and then the prime lending rate in South Africa as it is now will be 11.75%. That is what the ordinary businesses and ordinary people will be charged by the banks for their mortgage repayments, house mortgage repayments, and car installments, etc. That's the difficult part, because many people cannot afford that, because what has happened, as you mentioned the figures, in the year 2021, in October, the repo rate in South Africa was only 3.5%, which means the prime lending rate was 7%. But since November 2021, the repo rate has more than doubled from 3.5% in October 2021 to 8.25% now from today. Many people cannot afford, and many people have already lost their houses, and many people have had their cars repossessed.
All right, so now that we're seeing a raise in the repo rates, looking at it overall in terms of the country's economy, how bad is it? Because if you're talking about how it would affect the households and how it would affect their assets, of course, it would have an attending effect on the country's economy overall. So tell us, how bad is it?
It is really bad. I'm one person who tries to avoid sensationalizes economic issues, but this one is really bad, because we are looking at an economic growth, if we have it, which was initially set to be 0.2%, and they revised it to only 0.3%. This is a country with an unemployment rate of over 34%, and then the expanded definition at over 42%. people are really struggling. So when you use the repo rate as a blunt instrument to simply say our mandate as the Reserve Bank is to deal with interest rates, then that is wrong. And that is why many people are really angry, because most of our problems in South Africa are what we call imported inflation. Our inflation has gone up because the international Brent crude oil prices have gone up. And our inflation has gone up because our inflation has gone up, not because of what is happening in South Africa, but because of all the challenges that we had since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So when you increase the interest rates in order to deal with inflation under those circumstances, it does not work. It's counterproductive. It actually pushes up the inflation, and that's where we have a problem. And that's why many people understand economics who would not have minded if ever the Monetary Policy Committee increased the repo rate by 25 basis points, are angry that it increased it by such a huge amount of 50 basis points, because that is not going to push down our inflation rate from 6.8, which was seen as better than before. And then you bring in this thing, I bet you when the inflation rate comes out in June, it will be much higher than 6.8 instead of seeing it going down. That is where the problem is.
All right, so finally, Professor, before I let you go, now that you're saying that increasing rates, as it were, does not do anything in dealing with inflation in the country, so what actions do you think that the South African government can employ in order to restore investors' confidence, actually deal with inflation, and stimulate economic growth? Because we see that South Africa's economy is not really in a very good state. Just in about a minute, I need your reaction.
Yeah, the first thing that they must do is to sort out the electricity issue. And I think the president of South Africa has dealt with that one, because at last he has given the delegations of authority to the new minister of electricity. Once you've sorted out electricity issues, then you can look at other economic growth issues. But before you sort that one out, whatever you do, you'll be wasting your time. So let us sort out the electricity and then talk about economic growth.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Bonke, for talking to us.
Thank you.